Everybody, my name is Kat Bowser. I'm your resident fantasy therapist, and welcome back to my channel. Those of you here for the first time, welcome. My name is Kat Bowser. I'm a licensed therapist. I'm also a writer working on my first novel. And on my channel, I like to talk about what I consider to be the heart of writing, the characters, and the heart of the characters is in their psychology. So that's the angle I take on everything we talk about on my channel. So today I actually have a new tag for you guys. This one was done and created by the novel Nana, which I have linked below. Make sure you guys go check her channel out and give her some love. And it is called What Book Baby Tag. And I always love doing tags that talk about stories and books and characters that you love because let's face it, if you love to write, then something has triggered that love. So without further ado, let's get on into it. Right, so question number 1. What childhood book do you still own? That would be this one. Which I don't actually know what the title of it is because the cover fell off a long time ago. Walt Disney's Treasure of Children's Classics. So this is essentially a book that are really quick, not quite novelizations, but expansions on the famous stories and stuff. So has some nice pictures and stuff in it. There's also some behind the scenes stuff on how they did the movies and things like that. So my parents used to read this to me every night. It used to be one of my favorite books to pick out, and I would pick one story from it and we would read it at night. Sleeping Beauty was my favorite, but I definitely fell in love with the other versions too. And as you guys can see, it has had some love. Look, you can see this. You can see the spine in this book. My dad has fixed this book, I think, like 3 times. Last time was, I think I was in junior high. Yeah, just graduated junior high, so 1999. So it's been through a time. But it's still one of my favorites, and you can actually still get a modern version of it. I don't know if they've updated it with any of the new movies, but you can still buy this one. My sister actually got one for my nephews when they were born, so I will probably do the same when I have children. Number 2, what golden little book do you remember from childhood? Oh, we read so many of these. I remember The Little Tugboat. I remember Porky Little Puppy. And then we had a whole bunch of Disney. These are actually not from my childhood. Unfortunately, those have since been lost. However, my husband actually had the idea that when we got married, we handed these out as my wedding gifts. You can see the little sticker still in here. So these were extras that we had left over. And so I have been saving them for when I have kids. So I love little golden books. But I would say definitely the Disney ones were ones we read a lot. Little Tugboat we read a lot. Porky Little Puppy we read a lot. And like versions of fairy tales, we read those a lot too. So yeah, those are the little golden books that I remember. Question number 3. What book did you hate the ending to? The Hobbit. I love this book. Don't get me wrong. Anybody that knows me knows I love Tolkien. He is my favorite author. But I don't like this ending. I definitely see what Tolkien was going for. He was trying to show what greed will do to you, and he did mention, I believe in one of his letters, I'll have to look it up to be sure, but he did mention he was trying to get across that young men go and die in old men's wars. But I just think I understand having Thorin die. Totally agree with that. I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. I don't like that he killed both Thorin's nephews. I think at least one of them should have lived. And honestly, if we're talking like lineage, they would have kept one of them out of the battle. I'm sorry. You don't send the entire line into a battle. Um, but I also don't like this because I think it is too cruel to Dis, which I'm probably saying her name wrong. That is Thorin's sister. She is the mother of Philly and Killy. This poor woman. This poor woman. Let's see. Her grandfather goes crazy and gets killed. Her father disappears, goes crazy, dies. Her brother gets killed. Her middle brother, Fririn, he gets killed. Now her sons die. There's debate on whether her husband was dead before the journey began. There's a lot of evidence he might have been. There is also a suggestion that if he was alive, he committed suicide after learning of his son's deaths. So she is all alone. And I just think that's too cruel. Um, so honestly, I would have probably kept at least one of them alive. Probably the youngest one because I mean, as sad as that nickname is, the Spare, there's a reason it's called that. So that's why I don't like this ending. It's not that I don't think it's well written. I just think it's too cruel. Number 4, which book do you wish had a sequel? Um, this is a hard one. This is a hard one. Uh, Lord, I don't know. Two of the books that I've read this year were by indie authors, Lord of Long Shadows and A Storm of Silver and Ash, and they're both getting sequels. So I guess I could count them. Um, but honestly, off the top of my head, I can't think of any that I finished reading it and I thought, oh, this deserves a sequel. It needs a sequel. Um, I'm more the type of I'm open to more ideas and more adventures, but if it doesn't have one, I'm not gonna kind of rack my brain about it. Number 5, which book made you cry? All right, this one I'm cheating because to be honest, it takes a lot to make me cry in a book. I don't think I ever have, to be honest. Um, I don't know why. I've cried at adaptations of them made into movies when the music kicks in and helps, but I don't know. I just never have cried really well with books. But I can tell you which ones kind of really got to me, I guess. I guess I'll go with that. The ones where I feel like I should have cried, but I didn't. Um, I'm not gonna go with Lord of the Rings, even though that one has definitely done that. I'm gonna go with Fairest of Them All, which is essentially a retelling of Snow White talking about how the Wicked Queen became wicked. And I like it because it tells it from her point of view in that she used to love Snow White. She used to actually be a very caring mother figure to her. And so you slowly see her descend into this dark path and you know where it's going. And so that one kind of hit me. It's like, I know where this is going, but I don't want it to go that way. So I'll go with that one for this question. What book made you laugh? This one, Lord of Long Shadows. The side character in here, Thistle, cracks me up. And it's not that the author isn't purposely doing like slapstick or anything. It's just he's very blunt and just the way he interprets situations. I was laughing so many times. He has great chemistry with the main character, Alex. It's very platonic. There's no romantic relationship, but just the way they play off each other and how he likes to point out like the hopelessness of the situation every so often, yet they still keep going. I like that. So yeah, Lord of Long Shadows mainly for Thistle because he's great. Right, what book do you often quote? I love quotes in general, honestly. So any book that I've read, I'm going to be quoting at some point. I'm going to be pulling quotes from it. When I was a kid, I quoted Disney movies a lot, and when I got older, I really got into. I read Animorphs for a while, and I really liked some of the quotes in there. So I'll go with that one for this question because I do remember quoting that one quite a bit, particularly the very sarcastic characters. I thought the dialogue in those stories were very well done. So I'll go with Animorphs on that one. What book scared you? Again, this one is hard because books usually don't scare me. I have just recently started reading horror, so maybe I just haven't found the right one yet. Um, but I have a feeling I'm reading It right now by Stephen King. I have a feeling that one's going to scare me. I've read a lot of it. I haven't finished it yet. It is creepy, it is frightening, and it does deal with the psychology of fear, which I always find fascinating. The movie, the 90s miniseries when I was a kid, scared the crap out of me. And looking back at it now, I'm kind of embarrassed it scared me. But I think that the idea behind it is legit. So I think that is that's probably one I'll go with. I'll go with It by Stephen King. All right, what book did you not finish? Okay, so I tend to usually finish books. Occasionally I'll take longer than I would like to finish them, but I do try to finish them. But for this question, A Song of Ice and Fire. I tried, I really did, and I got a ways into it, but for me, I'm not a big fan of George R. R. Martin's writing style. The world is just, it's too dark. He writes it to be realistic, which is fine, but I don't know, like he almost focuses so much on making them realistic that he forgets to make them likable. There's like maybe 3 characters in the whole series that I actually like. Everybody else is an asshole. So I think that's a detriment. And just as the series goes on, I can kind of see the plot getting away from him and it's going off in all these tangents. And it's just, I don't think that works for the story. I think that's the kind of story that I think he had these ideas for side stories he wanted to do, but I think it would have been a better choice to maybe do separate books on those side stories rather than trying to cram them all into this one big epic. That's just me. So, as of right now, I have not finished A Song of Ice and Fire. I'm not really planning on finishing it just because I'm not a fan of the overly gritty, realistic, everybody sucks kind of world, and that's just not my jam. So, Song of Ice and Fire for that one. What book did you love that was made into a movie that you hate? This one is a hard question for me because honestly, I view books and movies as separate. Like even if a book is a poor adaptation, I don't see it as an offense to the source material because I view it as 2 separate projects, 2 separate mediums. Good example, I love the Hobbit movies. A lot of people don't. I do because I view them separately from the books or from the book, but that's just me. But if I was going to pick a movie that I think I personally did not like, I'm going to go with the live action Charlotte's Web. I love the animated adaptation. And I don't know, the live action one just didn't do it for me. I know that the author was disappointed in the animated one, particularly because they made it a musical. I don't understand that criticism because there are poems and songs throughout the book. So I always kind of raised my eyebrows at that one, like, okay. But that's his prerogative, that's his right. But the live action one, I just couldn't get into the acting. I couldn't get into the voice acting on the animals. It didn't feel like Charlotte's Web to me. So if I'm looking for an adaptation of Charlotte's Web, I'm going to go to the animated one. Last question. What is a book that has changed your life? These. Lord of the Rings. I took a while to read them. It took me 3 tries actually to get through Fellowship for the first time. But once I did, these are still my favorite books. I am always looking for new fantasy books, and so far, none that I found even come close. I've tried Dune, Wheel of Time, you know, a lot of these newer fantasy, and they're not that the newer fantasy is bad, it's good, and I enjoy quite a bit of them, but it just doesn't touch it. For me, I think it's also more personal because when I was a kid, I always loved writing, and so I started making up cultures and languages and holidays and things like that for these made up races that I was creating. And everybody always told me it was a little too much. Like, why are you going this far? And I never had a good answer. I was like, because I feel like I should. And one of my teachers finally told me, you should read Tolkien. And so, like I said, it took me a few tries, but I did get through it. And I try to reread them at least once a year now. I actually just started my reread of Fellowship. And it's one of those books that I literally sat down, opened it up, and I felt like I had just been called in by an old friend to sit by the fire with like a hot bowl of stew just to reminisce. It felt homey, it felt comforting, and it always has that effect on me. It's like it wraps me in this sense of just warmth and happiness. And it is still the only book that when I get to the end of it, I get legitimately homesick. When I finish Return of the King, I close the book. I almost want to go right back to Fellowship again just so I can jump back into this world, because when I finish it, I feel like I'm saying goodbye to these friends that I've known my entire life, that I'm waving goodbye to this world that I feel like I have lived in. And that is not an easy feeling to create in a reader, but Lord of the Rings does it. These are actually, I got these for Christmas. They're little pocket versions, because if you want to look at that. The text is like super small. But I kind of like them. I like these small versions. My parents got them for me for Christmas because my old versions are falling apart. So these are books that I will read and reread and reread and reread. And yes, I love the movies too. It's just this world. And I think that's why I love Tolkien so much, and I dig into his world as much as I do, just because I feel at home there. Like, if, in my opinion, if there is a heaven, it's gonna be like the Shire. Like, to me, that would be heaven. Middle Earth would be heaven. And I don't know. You guys probably all have certain books that do that for you, and that's what Lord of the Rings does for me. Is it not only validated what I was doing as a kid, that hey, you're not the only person that does this type of world building, that digs into these cultures like this, but it's just comforting, and it's happiness in a book form. That's what it is for me. These books, legitimately, no matter how I'm feeling, if I pick up these books, they will make me happy. So I guess you could call them my hug, my books in hug form or something. But yeah, Lord of the Rings definitely has changed my life, and for the better, I believe. So thank you, Novel Nana, for this tag. This was a fun tag. And I hope you guys will, like I said, check out her channel, and make sure you try this tag too if you're interested, because I think this was a lot of fun to talk about. I'm glad to see you guys have stopped by again. If you guys like this kind of content, make sure you drop a comment below. I will always respond to them. I upload every Thursday, every Sunday. If you guys want to know whenever I upload, make sure you subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss it. And I will look forward to seeing you guys next time.